Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Outwit Travel Safe Final Rose podcast. My name is Kaylee. I am the host of this podcast. I decided to start this podcast because I love shows including The Amazing Race, Survivor, and more recently, The Bachelor. I love talking about these shows, and not all of my friends watch all these shows, and I just love talking about them. So I figured I would start a podcast for people who maybe are a bit more interested in these shows and just want to start a conversation about what went on in the previous episode. So currently, as I'm filming this, it is January 20th of 2022. The Bachelor and The Amazing Race have already started up, so I'm a little late to the game, but I just kind of decided on a whim to start this. So yeah, anybody who wants to keep listening, really cool. I am planning on starting an Instagram for this. I will hopefully be uploading this podcast on a bunch of different podcasting platforms and maybe creating a YouTube channel. I'm still kind of not sure if I should do that or not, and if I should include my face or not, but if I get the Instagram up and running, let me know what you guys want to see. Yeah, so let's get started. Last night, the fourth episode of The Amazing Race aired. It feels really like it should be episode 3 because they only have aired 2 times, but the first episode, for those who haven't been keeping up with it, the first episode was 2 episodes in one, how these usually start out on. So previously what has happened was back in 2020, this race was starting and they were, in Europe, and 2 teams were eliminated during the time of the first few episodes, and then the race got stopped because of COVID, as did pretty much everything else. I am a current college senior, so I feel the harshness of COVID started when I was a sophomore, so life has been very different. But before, things weren't good for 2 teams. Mike and Mo, I believe they are, Mike and Mo. They were singing cops. They were eliminated on the first episode, like the first part of the 2-part episode. They were eliminated. They obviously got to the mat last. For those who don't know what The Amazing Race is, you get to the mat last out of each leg of the race, then you have a chance of being sent home. Sometimes there are non-elimination legs, like for some reason the second leg was a non-elimination leg, which I thought was really weird, but they made it a non-elimination leg. And then the third leg, Arun and Natalia got eliminated for getting to the mat last. They switched detours and unfortunately did not get to the mat in time to continue racing. And then COVID hit. We had that scene with Phil telling everybody that they were pausing the race. Hopefully they could continue the race into the future. So we're back. What has happened in that time? 4 of the teams are not back, and one of them was one of my favorites. So before episode 4 now, my favorite teams were the flight attendants, Raquel and Kayla. Also had Anthony and Spencer, who are the hometown heroes who stopped the terrorist attack in Paris. They have a movie based on them. Really cool. Unfortunately, couldn't make it back. And my other favorite team was Taylor and Isaiah. Taylor and Isaiah had a viral wedding dance. That was kind of their story. 4 of the teams couldn't return, 2 of them being 2 of my favorites. Taylor and Isaiah, why they couldn't return was one of their brothers died recently, and obviously they need time to recover from that, so this wouldn't be good mentally. I completely understand. Very sad, though, to not see them return. Connie and Sam were a couple from North Carolina. They didn't get a lot of screen time in the first 2 episodes, so I don't really know much about them. They were doing fine. They were middle of the pack. They also could not return because Connie's pregnant, and obviously, you can't do a lot of flying if you're pregnant, so obviously couldn't come back. Carol and Ray were a couple on Love Island. I don't watch Love Island, so I don't necessarily know much about them other than highlights I've seen. they are now, from what I've heard, they are broken up. And also, Caro was here on a visa and her visa expired. So she is back in her home country right now. Hopefully, everything is okay with them. And then Anthony and Spencer were a huge question mark for a while. Nobody knew really what was going on. They don't have much of a social media presence, so nobody really knew why they couldn't return. So it was really unfortunate, but I just found an article about why they can't come back. And I think it's a completely legitimate thing. Obviously everything's legitimate. But so Anthony just got his dream job as a financial advisor. And the thing with a lot of firms, I'm an accounting major and have a full-time offer at a firm. So really understand their policies of not letting their financial advisors just take a month off to do The Amazing Race or something like that. So because he didn't want to quit his new dream job, they unfortunately couldn't make it back, which is very unfortunate, but I'm glad that Anthony was able to find his dream job during the time of the pandemic. So I hope everything is okay with all of them. Now, because 4 of the teams couldn't make it back, they were at a net loss of 2. And they had 2 teams eliminated. So what's the only fair thing to do? They brought back the eliminated teams in order to make the numbers as they should for this point in the race. They brought back the eliminated teams of Michael and Mo, the singing cops, and they brought back Arun and Natalia, the father-daughter duo. Natalia is married now, so that's really fun. So brought everybody back, and they're starting the race like that. Personally, I like that idea much better than alternatives that were being thrown around of bringing in all-star teams or just shortening the race and things like that. I think they did a good job here with what they did. So we're 19 months later from the initial start of the race, and they're starting in Switzerland, which I think is really cool. I want to travel so bad, but I have not been able to, and especially now with COVID. But they're starting in Switzerland, and I was surprised to see that everybody was happy that the eliminated teams are coming back. I have seen it before in other shows like Survivor, and back when I was younger, watched The Biggest Loser with my family. People would get so mad if they brought back eliminated teams, which I understand. I would also probably be a little bit peeved if they brought back eliminated teams, and how Edge of Extinction worked. I did not like when they brought it back, but that's a story for another podcast. So I was really happy to see that everybody was also cool with the eliminated teams coming back, and I am excited to see how they do. And so on episode 4, they started out talking about quarantine and how everybody felt during quarantine. Ryan from the Ryan and Dusty team, if you don't know, they are the team where Ryan was wrongfully imprisoned for a murder for 10 years. So him and Dusty are best friends, and they are doing this race to experience the world together. Ryan was talking about how it basically related to prison life and how he just kind of went back into that, which was a little morbid, but a little bit funny, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, with the updates, Natalia from Aaron and Natalia is married. I was sad to hear the flight attendants lost their job. I think they said that they were able to go back to their work now, but when everything with airports and all that were closing down, they lost their jobs for a while, which is really unfortunate. And then the team Lala and Lulu, they're the twins. Their grandma passed away, which again is really unfortunate. She passed away due to COVID. It's really unfortunate. I hope that they're doing okay. Something I noticed was that the Holderness family and the educators didn't get a feature during this time about what they did over quarantine or anything like that. Thought that was a little weird. Maybe editing hint that they don't last too long. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm especially surprised by the Holderness family. They got a little feature later, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking about what they did. They just said that they hung out with their kids, and that was about it. So I'm interested to see if that is a little editing hint, but we will see in the future. And something new with the race right now is they're getting charter planes to every new location that they're going to instead of needing to get their own plane tickets, which will be interesting to see because they won't necessarily have that gap that can sometimes happen when they have to get their own flights. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And there will be more self-driving, which I'm interested to see who learned how to drive stick over this time, because if you're going on Survivor, you need to learn how to make fire, you need to know how to swim. If you're going on The Amazing Race, you got to know how to read a compass and a map, and you got to know how to do stick, because unfortunately, not everywhere has the automatic cars that we have in the United States. So that'll be interesting to see. We didn't get to see that this episode, and I'll get into that later. And also something that I was a little confused by was that their mask usage was very minimal, especially since they're in other countries. You would expect them to be wearing masks because while they probably did get tested beforehand and most likely have their shots, I'm just assuming if they were able to film, they all have their vaccines and tested negative. Isn't like a contained environment like Survivor is. They're still running around different countries. They're still meeting a bunch of different people. There is a high chance still that they could get COVID. So I was interested to see that the mask usage was very minimal, but I guess we'll see as the season progresses. So now getting into the race itself, they all basically start at the same time, which is interesting because usually they start in the order of like who got into the last pit stop first. But I guess they couldn't really do that because of like the 2 eliminated teams being brought back and it was so long ago. But still, it would have. I felt like they would have like had the teams who originally came in first and just kind of like went that way and then had the already eliminated teams starting last. But I don't know, that's just me. So their first like checkpoint was high up on a mountain, which I was interested to see what they were going to do. When they got up to the mountain, they had to do a roadblock where they had to walk along this beautiful path on these mountains where you could see 6 different countries from the point where the clue box was, and it just looked gorgeous. I don't know who I would run the race with if I were to run the race, but I know for a fact I would have wanted to do that roadblock. I don't mind heights at all, and I love just views like that, and I don't mind again being up in the air, and that just seemed like such a good time. I've been ziplining before, I've done tree walks, that just reminds me of those types of experiences, and I know I would have wanted to do that, but they did it. Most teams, it seemed like they had a good person going to do it. You know, most of these teams are very athletic. They had time to get even more athletic. One team I saw that I was surprised didn't really seem to work on stuff over the 19 months was Akbar and Sherry. They're the educators from Michigan who were having some issues early on when the race was originally set to be filming. I was expecting them to at least like work on stuff a little bit, but it doesn't seem like they did. They were still not communicating well with each other, and Sherry ended up being the one to do this section, which I thought was interesting because she said she's afraid of heights. So I don't know why you would send the person who's afraid of heights to do this section. There was a little comment about Akbar being too tall, but I don't necessarily know if that's actually a reason why somebody couldn't do that. It doesn't seem like there would have been an issue. I've done stuff like that, and you just need to be clamping things onto a rope. So as long as he wasn't like over a weight limit, I guess he should have been able to do it. But I don't know, it was interesting. I felt really bad watching Sherry go through this challenge because like I felt so bad. She was trying so hard. You could obviously see like they wanted to be back in the race. Like they wouldn't have come back if they didn't want to try again for the race. But like it's obvious that she couldn't really do it well. So it was just sad because by the time she got to the clue box, every other team was back and riding down the gondola. Like all the rest of the teams are on the same gondola going back down the mountain. So it was interesting that they sent her, in my opinion. She felt really bad, and you could just see the frustration on both their faces when they were doing that roadblock. I really hope that they can get together in the future. But there were a few like funny comments that were made from other teams, not about Akbar and Sherry, but just about their teammate. Who was it? I think Ryan was doing the task for the Ryan and Dusty team. And then Dusty is talking about his calves and how like Ryan is obviously the one who should be doing this because he has the best calves and this is a great calf workout. And they were talking about how they were doing stuff like this and doing a lot of hiking during the pandemic. So it's I think they're funny. I don't know. I really like them. And then in this type of challenge, when you're on a rope like that, you can't necessarily like pass people. This isn't like a challenge where that is really a thing. But there was one section where they weren't on ropes where people could have taken the opportunity to pass people, and Penn entirely took that opportunity. He got down the mountain in about 4th place, And then as he was running back up to get clamped onto the ropes, he passed 2 teams and got up into second place, which I thought was a little bit funny. He took the one opportunity he had. And then when they got to the gondola, Ryan and Dusty just missed the first gondola, which would have given them a bit of an advantage, but they missed it. So every team besides Akbar and Sherry were able to get onto that second gondola on their way down the mountain. So pretty much everybody was tied except Akbar and Sherry. Next, to get to location 2, they had an automatic car to get there, which I was a little bit confused by. I don't know if automatics are a bit more commonplace in Switzerland or not. Again, I've never been to Switzerland, but usually, like, every place that's not America, they have to drive a stick shift car. So I was a little bit confused, and, they've had 19 months to learn stick. Like, a couple of them were talking about how they took the 19 months to actually learn stick, and they were disappointed that they couldn't do it. So I'm hoping we get to see them drive stick in the future, because, like, there's the added thing when you're driving in another country of having to read another country's language when you are going from place to place. But what's fun with that in The Amazing Race is they're doing that while attempting to drive stick if they didn't already drive stick before. So I was a little bit confused. Mike and Mo ended up being the first people to the second location, which ended up being a detour. So the 2 detour options were Punch It, which was putting charms on a belt to create a story, and then Toss It, which was flag twirling. You had to learn a choreographed routine. Personally, if I were doing the race, I feel like my first instinct would have been to do Punch It. I'm not the best with learning choreography. I have no sense of rhythm. I took a 23andMe a couple years ago, and on one of the traits on there is being able to pick up a musical pitch, being able to do anything like musically or lyrically, stuff like that. I've never been good at it. I would have done Punch It. It's a bit more manual labor, but it's putting charms on a belt. And it's like correlating to a story. I like storytelling and things like that. So I feel like I would have done that, even though it ended up being the bit more time consuming of the detours. So only 2 of the teams did Punch It. It was Mike and Mo and Arun and Talia, the 2 eliminated teams. So that was interesting seeing them together while the rest of the teams did flag twirling. The whole I knew obviously was going to do flag twirling. Anything that's involved with choreography, they're going to do. They make internet videos doing dances and things like that. And I was very happy this time that they did not continue showing the same clips that they showed for the first 3 episodes for each team, especially the Holderness family. You see the dad shake his butt in front of his daughter's face one time. You've seen it 1,000 times. We didn't need to see it as many times as we did. But, they have fun videos, I guess. I don't really watch them, but they seem like good people. So they did the flag twirling. It was a very heavy flag, it looked like. I never did color guard, but my sister has, and those flags are very heavy. It's a huge upper body workout to do those flags. While the choreography didn't seem like overly complicated, there was like a lot of moving the flag around and making sure it didn't touch the ground, and then also throwing in the air and catching it. It was a fairly, I believe, difficult routine. It would have taken quite a bit for me to be able to do that. I also have a bad wrist, so I would not have been able to do that challenge. But a lot of the teams were able to do it fairly well. The Holderness family obviously did pretty good, but they took 3 attempts. Dusty and Ryan were able to do it on their first attempt and were able to leave the detour first. The Holderness family was out second after their 3rd attempt. The wife, I'm blanking on her name, needed to take a break for her wrist, which obviously that is a heavy flag. So I completely understand why she needed to take a break. And then Lulu and Lala were out 3rd. They only took 1 attempt, I think, or at least 1 attempt that they aired. Them and the flight attendants may have taken more time. But the flight attendants got off 4. So this was obviously the faster of the detours. And right when the flight attendants left, Akbar and Sherry got to the location. So at least what was aired in the episode, after everybody left the flags, people started to finish up at the Punch It detour, which, like, I was looking at what they were doing, and, the story itself was fairly straightforward. So nobody got the story part wrong, but Mike and Mo were confused about which way the story was supposed to start on a belt. feel like it would have been common knowledge that it starts at the buckle and then goes down to the end of the belt. Personally, that's what I would have thought, but they did not think that. They started at the end of the belt and then worked their way to the buckle. So Arun and Natalia did not do this. They did the buckle to the end of the belt, and Mike and Mo saw that they were doing it the opposite way from Arun and Natalia, but they didn't really question it until Arun and Natalia went to turn in their belt. Once they heard that they were correct, they still went up to get theirs checked and then were told that it was wrong. So Arun and Natalia were out 5th overall. And then they had to get a new belt and start completely over because they obviously put their story backwards. So they had to work on that. And this seemed like a time-consuming challenge, as it was. Like, Arun and Natalia didn't get out of there until after all the other teams besides Akbar and Sherry got out of the flag twirling. So this was a huge blow to Mike and Mo. So they got out, and then Akbar and Sherry were actually able to put together the choreography. I feel like there's a thing with the detours or just any challenge that the people who are judging tend to get a little less strict about when they give out the clue, the longer the challenge goes. Because, I don't think they really showed in depth Akbar and Sherry's performance, but they were having a lot of issues keeping the flag off the ground and things like that. It wasn't like the later performances weren't necessarily like perfect, as like prior seasons used to be. Like, if it wasn't perfect, they wouldn't give you the clue. So, I feel like that has just become a thing more recently. It's just something I've noticed. But Akbar and Sherry were able to get out of there before Mike and Mo were able to finish their belt again. At the pit stop during all this, obviously Ryan and Dusty were first place. It seems like they really are just always at the top of the pack. I feel like also with prizes, because the first place always gets a prize, I feel like they can't do the travel rewards that they would usually be giving out. Again, because of COVID, it's still a thing. Wear your mask, get boosted, people. I want to be able to have a graduation this semester. But so Ryan and Dusty, instead of winning a vacation, won cash instead. They each won $2,500, which, I think is a pretty good deal for getting first in one leg. Granted, the million is obviously better, but $2,000 isn't too shabby. And then the Holderness family was right behind them. Flight attendants got in before Lulu and Lala. So the 4 teams who were at the flags first were obviously the first 4 in. So Akbar and Sherry are finally able to get out of the flag challenge, and Mike and Mo actually got the belt correct, so they were able to leave. And then it came to people getting lost. Arun and Natalia got very lost. They were going the wrong direction for quite a while. Sherry and Akbar thankfully got good directions, and they were able to get 5th place. Phil really pulled a fast one on them and pulled the whole, oh, you guys are like gonna be so sad, blah blah blah. Or at least it's gonna be sad for the people in last place because you're not in last place. So they were very sad until Phil did that, and then they were in 5th place. So they're still in the race. Then it's just the 2 teams who've already been eliminated who are in last. So it was between Arun and Natalia and Mike and Mo. Mike and Mo couldn't figure out where they were going, and also they were at a huge time disadvantage. So Arun and Natalia were able to get there in 6th place. And unfortunately, Mike and Mo, again, were the first team eliminated because in this section of the race, they were the first team eliminated overall and the first team eliminated when they were able to come back, which is very unfortunate. But, I mean, not everybody is made to run the amazing race. Not everybody is made to be on Survivor. Not everyone's made to be on The Bachelor, stuff like that. So, unfortunately, the Singing Cops left again, and the other team who was last eliminated, Arun and Natalia, are starting at the back of the pack. I'm surprised that people are more so maintaining their initial status of where they were before the race. Ryan and Dusty were always in the top. People with them, Anthony and Spencer, just are not here anymore. They were really, I was looking at it as one of their main sources of competition, them and maybe the flight attendants. Flight attendants got a little lower this time. The Holderness family, 2nd place, they were in the upper half always in the first 3 legs. Lulu and Lala, I was very happy with their performance this time. Usually in the past 3 legs, they were in the lower half. But it seems like they have been working on their athletic ability and their ability to communicate with each other. There was very minimal arguing between the two of them this time. So it was nice to see, and they were able to manage 4th place. They could have gotten 3rd if I'm guessing they just got maybe slightly lost at some point, or just didn't find as good of a path to get to the pit stop as the flight attendants did. They did get there they got there at the same time. That's right. They basically got there at the same time. Just the flight attendants were like a step ahead of them. So, I really like that they kind of have a little bit of an alliance going for an all-female winner team. I would be down for an all-female winner team. It has been a while. I was very happy that Survivor just had a female winner. It's been quite a while since they have. So, it would be nice to see a all-female team win, bring in 2022 well. And so going forward, my winner predictions would be Ryan and Dusty. They have been doing an amazing job. They have been working on themselves during the 19-month period where the race wasn't happening and they were just hoping that the race would come back. They've been working on themselves a lot, and they're 19 months older, they're 19 months wiser. They still are doing well at the top of the pack. So hopefully they continue to do well. I wouldn't be mad if they won. I think that they're a great team. Personal, what I want to win is the flight attendants. I just want to be their best friend. They seem so cool. I love them in the first few episodes. They didn't get as much screen time in this episode, but I just love their demeanor. They seem like great people. Next week, my loser predictions of who's going to be going home, if it is an elimination leg, honestly, Sherry and Akbar, I feel bad. They're trying so hard, and you can't put that on them that they aren't trying. They're working so hard to try to stay in this race. But I just think the other teams are more athletic than they are and communicate better than they do. They're a married couple. They are going to bicker, but even at the beginning, they were talking about how they were working on their communication. They were saying what they were and weren't going to do anymore. But then they kind of fell back into their own old path when they were at the flag challenge. So I don't know. It would be cool to see them as an underdog team make it far, but I do not see them winning. Even if they were to make it to the final 3, I just don't see them winning. I feel bad, but they are amazing people. I love what they were doing in Michigan. They never really gave an update on that, so I'm hoping we get an update on if that program is still running. But yeah, that's my loser predictions for next week. And then the next time, they're showing that they're going to the Stairway to Heaven. A lot of walking in these challenges. So we will see how that works out for them. And yeah, this is the first episode of the Outwit Travel Safe Final Rose podcast. So let me know what you think. I am going to attempt to be making an Instagram page for this podcast. If I do get it up and running, it will be called the OTSFR podcast, or that's what the Instagram name will be, is the OTSFR podcast, the Outwit Travel Safe Final Rose podcast for short. And eventually maybe I'll get a YouTube channel up if people want to see video parts of this podcast. But yeah, that is it for today. Next week we will have another episode of The Amazing Race airing, and The Bachelor will be back from its hiatus, as I have been watching this season of The Bachelor. I do have thoughts on it. We will get into that next week. So listen, I don't know how to end this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time one of these shows air. Bye.